This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Good evening, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes. Always happy to be here and get into chat, see my favorite people. Thank you for spending your Friday evening with me. It means the world to have you here supporting the show and listening to guests that I bring in that I truly feel have merit, that can teach all of us something and empower us. I appreciate all of you, and make sure you spread the word about UFO Classified. If you can, if you're on social media, take the link for the show and put it out there. That would be wonderful. I want to keep the show going and fresh. And if you have any ideas for guests, let me know. But tonight, my guest is someone who I think you are all going to learn a great deal from. Before we get to my guest this evening, I want to say that I will be going on a road trip, a very, very long 18-hour road trip in one direction. Next Friday, I won't be here. I will be doing that, but it is to retrieve some files that I have been wanting for a long, long time. Files that are incredible, and I am honored to have. It is with a lot of thanks to people like Barry Greenwood, Fran Ridge, Jan Aldrich, that I have such a wonderful collection here that is in my public, is in a public place where people can come in and do research. But to be able to add to this and to add something that is specifically related to Utah, it is a brilliant moment for me, and I will be filming it because I have a feeling when I lay my hands on those files, I will probably get pretty teary-eyed. It's really an important thing for me, so I will share pictures and let you know all about that when I get back and everything. So my guest this evening is someone who has been in the UFO field for a long, long time, who has great depth and knowledge and understanding of the field of important cases and of some of the pitfalls that we see in quote-unquote ufology. I believe tonight that we are going to be discussing some great cases, but also talk about ways that we can excite a younger generation and get good research out there and to also preserve history. So those are the things on the agenda this evening. My guest is P Swiatek, and he says that he was quite naive in the ways of the world, but he graduated from Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania, double majoring in physics and earth science. But for a stint spent at NASA as an intern on CSAT, a remote sensing satellite, Rob spent his career at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in Virginia. He examined applications in, among many other areas, aeronautics and astronautics. His interest in UFOs stems to his mid-teens when he was drawn to the subject by books and magazine articles about strange things in the sky. He is currently a board member of MUFON and one of 6 directors of the UFO Research Coalition. And so now I think, Rob, you're going to start singing?
Well, yeah, that somehow did get into my thing there, but maybe can we put that off for the next?
All right. You know, I have to tell you, I had Rob Schaefer on here, and I made him sing at the end.
What did he sing?
You know, he actually has a beautiful operatic voice.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever heard that before, so I'm proud it was on my show.
Well, that might be one of the things I would actually tune in to listen to Bob Schaefer for. Just joking.
Yeah, it was an interesting interview, but he does have quite an operatic voice. It was interesting, but I am happy to have you on the show, and I wanted to say that your wife is state director for Virginia MUFON, and you have people in your state, Norm, Ben, Tony, people that have been on my show numerous times, and people that I really like, and I might have to move back there and join you guys.
Well, there'll be a spot here for you. We'll tell you when the meetings occur, and you can join us. That'd be great.
Oh, wow.
And it's a pleasure to be on your show, too, Erica. Let me just say thank you for asking me. And I've heard a lot about it. I've heard the show several times, and got a lot of information from it when you interviewed Eric Davis some months back. And I thought that was a very informative interview. And I was very enlightening with respect to the ATIP project and everything like that. So I hope everyone got a chance to hear that show.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the comments that you sent me. And I know recently you did a lecture about that. And let's start there. What are your feelings? Where do you think this is all going? Give us some background.
Well, background on what particular?
On ATIP, on all of, To the Stars.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll sum it up because I can't possibly do it justice, say, the way Eric Davis did, someone who was far more intimately involved than I. Everything I know about ATIP I got from, reading stuff from Eric and things online and the reports that have come out in the newspapers. But basically, I'll cut to the short of it. I'm not completely impressed by ATIP. I see it as just another government effort to look into UFOs that was started at the behest of Senator Reid. Had good intentions to, as he put it, to look into what are these objects flying around in the sky. And basically, the people who manned the ATIP project, the staff members, didn't know anything about UFOs to begin with. They were starting, for the most part, from ground zero. So those of us in the UFO field have been through this many times. We went through it with the Condon Committee, with a bunch of people who were scientists and psychologists, but they didn't know anything about the UFO subject to begin with. They had to, again, spend a whole lot of time getting up to speed on what was going on before they could even investigate a case. And we had the same thing with Blue Book. Basically, no scientists involved on the Blue Book staff. They farmed a lot of the cases out to local Air Force officers to investigate. And they never really got a handle on the UFO subject or even approached it scientifically at all. And it became sort of a debunking effort. And we've had a couple other little projects since Blue Book ended. Howard Blum, I guess it was, wrote the book Out There, where he talks about one of them. Another project that seemed to be circumspect and clandestine. And then we had another one talked about by John Alexander in his book. And all these projects just sort of fizzle out, and they haven't led anywhere. And we get the same conclusions. Every time a government UFO project is convened, they always end up saying, there's a mystery there with things they can't explain, but they never go beyond that. And that includes the Colorado Commission, the University of Colorado study. 1/3 of the cases they couldn't explain.
And so, and I know when I talk to veterans in the field, it is that skeptical, maybe cynical look at what's taking place because it's been done in different variations so many times before. So, do you see what they're doing and trying to put forth? Do you see any hope that there could be something productive, or is this just a way to put out disinformation or to steer the narrative and distract people?
I'm not sure it's that. I do think that there is a way we could go forward, and that would be in the case of the ATIP, if there are any records there, and we know that there are reports that Robert Bigelow Bass project looked into. They generated something like 38 reports. None of those, or with very few exceptions, they haven't all been made public. And other records that we know they've generated haven't been made public. So yeah, they could move the narrative forward by releasing all this stuff. But they're not. And the only person we have heard from the so-called mouthpiece of ATIP is Luis Elizondo, who's now a private citizen. And he can't talk about some things. So I don't think anybody's had any success FOIA-ing any records. So my advice is don't count on the government for anything. I think we should be able to figure out what UFOs are in the civilian UFO research community and the civilian science community. We don't really need the government. And I'm tired of, after 70 years, not making progress and everybody sort of leaning on and depending upon the government to, release a piece of the saucer, release the bodies, release the anti-gravity devices. Well, there might not be anything to release in that category. Yet we get thousands of cases a year, and that should be enough for us to make some really interesting conclusions about what's behind those cases. If the scientists if we could really put the big dollars and the big instrumentation behind an effort like that.
And I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, I don't know why people are wasting their time, I mean, going to the Hill and, doing A, B, C, and D. It's like, okay, I don't need anybody to tell me what I've seen or what other people have experienced. It's especially our government, because I don't know, for multiple reasons, but I think that it's hard sometimes for us in the United States because we get so bogged down instead of doing real hardcore research or, getting out in the field and doing things that are productive. We get sidelined with all of these developments and what are they doing now and what's happening here, and it's just like it is a three-ring circus, and I think some of that might be deliberate to distract us from really learning what the truth about this is.
Well, I can't argue with you there. As long as we're looking into things that aren't going to be like a huge disclosure of spectacular technology, which I don't think we're going to hear, that's time better spent on field investigations or analyzing traces or analyzing radar trackings or just analyzing a witness testimony. And so the longer we're distracted, the less progress we're going to make in understanding what's behind these things we're seeing in the sky.
And so you became interested in this when you were a teenager, and you picked up books and you were hooked. Tell me, do you remember specifically the first piece of literature that you picked up?
Oh my God, I was afraid you were going to ask that.
I'm so bad that way.
Can I lie? No, I won't lie. I won't lie. I'll have to say that the first piece of literature I picked up was George Adamski's Flying Saucers Have Landed. Actually, someone handed it to me. I didn't actually pick it up. I reached my hand out. But yes, that was. This is in common with a lot of other ufologists more famous than I, who have already said that their first book was George Adamski's Flying Saucers Have Landed. But that was it. And I think my second might have been a Frank Edwards book, Flying Saucers Serious Business. So I quickly sort of got on the right page.
Oh, that's good. That's good. After book 2, this is a good thing. So when you became interested in this, was it a mild interest, or did it take over your life, or how did it progress that you went from a teenager that picked up that book to where you are now?
Well, that's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. I did read a few books, and it was in the back of my mind because I was tremendously interested in the space program too at the same time. Project Apollo was going strong then, late 60s. One day I was walking across a field behind my house, and it was in 1968, in the summer or late spring of 1968. And suddenly I just felt a tremendous desire to want to get the latest UFO book, flying saucer book maybe back then, whatever that might have been that came out. And periodically every week or so, I would drive with my mom to Scranton, the big city of Scranton, not too far away from where I lived in Clarks Summit. And there were always bookstores down there they stocked the latest books on their shelves, UFO and otherwise. So I just got this feeling, man, I really need to get back and start reading what the latest UFO books are. And I had an intense urge to find out what was going on. And to be frank with you, Erica, that feeling has never left me since that day in the spring of '68 to now. I feel the same enthusiasm now that I suddenly felt almost like in a flash at that one time in 1968.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, I remember the first, just picking up that book in the school library. And
well, what book was that, Erica?
Oh my gosh, it was of course I can't remember the title. It was that profound, but it had a UFO on the cover. Why are they here? I don't know. That was a bad story on my part. But I remember the cover of the book. But it's always been there. And I shared with you a picture that I had drawn in third grade, and this has always been a part of me. And obviously as a young person, that was a part of you that became almost an obsession. I know this is an obsession for me. I like it, but
yeah, you have to keep it. You can't let it overtake your life, so it gobbles up everything. But it's been an intense interest, and it dovetails with other interests I have in space technology and science in general. So I've always found that I can come to a happy medium here with regard to fitting it into my life and my other interests.
That's wonderful. That's good. And some people don't have that luxury. I mean, I think some people get into this and it just becomes an obsession, and then all of their personal relationships and, the finances and all sorts of things begin to suffer because it's such a strange one.
Absolutely. Nick Redfern writes about how he just restricts his UFO work each day from 9 to 5. He picks up goes to his word processor at 9 o'clock and then sort of leaves off at 5 o'clock. And he said, I got to integrate this properly into my life. Then I go on and have the rest of my life occurs after 5 o'clock each day. And I think that's a pretty healthy way to approach the thing.
I do too. And it's for me, that's been the hard thing, because I love this so much. It's like I just want to learn, and I'm always talking to somebody about this and taking notes on that, and it's, oh my gosh, I feel like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, exactly. And at least with respect to UFOs, people say to me, aren't you tired of hearing about reports? Aren't you tired of the same thing, talking about reports for all these 50 years? And I really am not. I find them endlessly intriguing. And even if we didn't have abductions and crashed UFOs and all the different aspects of ufology that are there, I'm still sort of just fascinated by simple sightings. Maybe I'm a simple guy, but that's just how it plays out with me.
Well, and when I was with MUFON, the thing that was really interesting to me, I mean, the anomalous light phenomena. I mean, what you see over in Hechtel and what you see, in Yakima and Marfa, Texas, and different places. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times I talk to other state directors or investigators. Oh, those lights in the sky cases. Oh, those lights in the sky. I mean, just dismiss. And I'm just thinking, are you kidding? It might not be, the mothership landing on the lawn or ET coming out and, wanting to have a little Tupperware party. But there are patterns there. And this could be really the key to unlocking this mystery. And we're dismissing it.
Yeah, that could very well be. I tend to think the damn UFO subject is just so complicated that I'm not sure we're really going to ever quite unwind it, or at least not in the near future. And by near future, I would almost say maybe the next couple hundred years. It's geologically, that's the near future. But the relationship of the UFO phenomenon to human beings, and other people have said this, I'm not the first to say it, it might be like the relationship of humans to ants or some other insect community. They're wondering, why aren't the humans contacting the Queen? If there was real life out there and intelligent life, they'd be contacting the Queen. Well, there's never really going to be any kind of a tete between us and the ant kingdom. It's just not going to happen. And I hope it's not that with UFOs, but it very well could be. How do we really know at heart how alien life acts or what its motivations might be? We really don't, because we only have one sample of life, of really, really intelligent life, quotes maybe around the word intelligent there, and that would be the humans.
Exactly. And the thing that I find so fascinating is that we place so many belief systems on what this could be. I mean, sometimes I wonder if, and I want to talk to you more about this when we come back, but if really thinking that this is extraterrestrial, are we putting, or demonic, or we've got all of these labels for things and we don't have a clue. And in my opinion, that might be a dangerous route to go.
Well, yeah, it might very well. I don't rule too many things out. I guess I say when the only conclusion I can really say with any certainty is that, and it really is still an opinion, is that there's a non-human intelligence behind the UFO phenomenon. But I can't go much beyond that. Like you said, could it be demonic? Presumably it might be. I hope it's not that, and I study UFOs as though it's not demons, because that's in the realm of religion, and religion is not science. So if it's demonic, then all bets are off. There's nothing we can sort of do to really understand how that works. But it could be, and they could be from another dimension, whatever that means. And I tend to think the solution is something kind of complicated like that. They're capable of interdimensional travel and going from here to there in light years away in a second. I don't know. We haven't progressed far enough, but I am convinced that there's intelligence behind it, and it's not the human race.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is one cool thing I think about Project Heshtalen, which I always talk about because it's such an important thing to me. But I mean, they've scientifically studied 4 different types of light phenomena that behaves intelligently.
Erica, how many of those reports that the Heshtalen people have put out, are they available in English?
Yes. Yes.
Man, how did I miss that? Because I know there's been some speakers at the MUFON convention and that they have sort of given their symposium proceeding report, but have they published standalone documents on what they're finding?
Yeah. If you go to projectheshtalen.org, they have a lot, plus live cameras set up all throughout the valley, and it's really cool. And I think that's something that, like I mentioned to you when we had spoken on the phone, we should look to Heshtalen to try to emulate things here in the United States. I think that would be great for all of us.
Yeah, well, it certainly couldn't hurt, that's for sure, because they've been in the research instrumentation business for a long time here. And Fran Ridge would, certainly love to hear some of that stuff. I know that.
Oh, and I would love to connect both of them, Fran and Erling Strand. That would be really fun. But we are going to take a break, and I know that we are going to have some amazing stuff to talk about in the next 3 segments. I want to talk to you about a couple of your MUFON cases from 2018, and it has a lot to do with this anomalous light phenomenon, in my professional opinion, and then also a little bit about Bigelow and MUFON and all of these things. I'm so excited. I'm Erica Lukes here on UFO Classified with Rob Swiatek, and I won't be here next week, but I will be posting on Instagram and Facebook and keeping you up to date. And then when I finally see those files, you'll know exactly what files I'm getting, and you'll be as excited as I am. So stick around. The best is yet to come. We will be right back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Here's what happened on the last episode of 3 Guys, No Ties.
I picked up my daughter, and she was suspended for 2 days in school for bringing her horny toad there. So I worked for a law firm, which the owner of the law firm then paid money to get my daughter's horny toad registered as an emotional support pet, so my daughter can take that horny toad.
Three Guys, No Ties, Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is your captain. I'd like to welcome you on Jackpot Airlines Flight 1610, service to Lost Wages.
They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, apparently, they need a reality check done Vegas style.
Vegas, 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 Vegas.
Tune in Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, for Reality Check, hosted by Jessica Johns, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Biggest star in the world, bigger than Britney and Christina put together.
If it's happening on the Vegas Strip, you'll know about it here first.
You are a dirty little fun haver.
Join Jessica Johns as she explores and goes behind the scenes of what's hot and what's not. From the best entertainment Vegas has to offer to national celebrity gossip.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Jessica has her finger on the heartbeat of the city, and she's waiting to share it with you. Reality Check, hosted by Jessica Johns. Wednesday, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern. She does Vegas right.
Yeah, baby.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him opening his own clothing store at the age of 18? 1 in 138,000. Excited to be a part of pop culture, he packed for the big city. The odds of finding someone to invest in his vision? 1 in 4.5 million. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. I encourage you to learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The all-new KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Great. Make a note of it. It's great.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. Always happy to be here on a Friday evening, and as you know, there is never a dull moment in my life. I have been busy researching, talking to Barry Greenwood, talking to Rob. I had a great conversation the other night with Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She's been giving me some guidance with regard to things that have been taking place in my life, I believe, as a result of traveling into some of these hot zones, like Skinwalker Ranch and all of these other places, Yuma, Arizona, things like that. So it's fun. I love my life. I'm so blessed to do what I do and to learn from everybody in my life. I also talked to Gordon Lohr, again, who's been on my show several times, and I'm sending him love and prayers. He had a friend who was, he has not spoken with, who is elderly, who was in the line of the wildfires. And so I just want to give a shout out to Gordon and his friend. I hope everything works out, and we'll be sending love and blessings and prayers to all of the people affected by the wildfires in California. My guest this evening is Rob Swiatek, and he is incredible. I've loved talking to him and learning about his very dedicated, intense, but grounded approach to researching this just mind-blowing phenomena, and some of the people he's come in contact with in his career. It's been great. He has his degree in physics and earth science and worked at the U.S. Patent Office, where he is a physics examiner in aerospace technology. And we had a question in chat about NDAs and the Patent Office. And so talk a little bit about that, because it sounds like you've been involved in some cool things.
Yeah, that's a good question from one of your listeners, or the chat room person. And thank you kindly for the nice remarks, Eric. I do appreciate that.
Absolutely.
My Patent Office career it evolved to be kind of odd, in the sense that I worked in a lot of different areas, and for about the last 16 years or so that I worked at the Patent Office, I worked in aerospace, under the aeronautics and astronautics, which would be the space science end of things, applications. And so that, of necessity, gave me a disc-shaped or circular aircraft to work on. So I can honestly say that if someone had said, do you work on flying saucers for the U.S. government, I would have had to say, well, yes, I do, in the form of patent applications. Every once in a while, I'd receive one that was a circular craft. And now, these things were not classified or anything like that. And to quickly answer the reader's question, the listener's question before I forget about it, no, I have not had to sign any NDAs. I'll go into a little bit about how disclosure or non-disclosure works with the Patent Office. But I would receive these circular patents applications, and a couple of them I issued. And they were not exotic in the sense of using any kind of otherworldly technology, because all patents have to be based on the laws of science and laws of science as we understand them, and on sound engineering principles. So that most of these circular craft had jet engines to provide lift or horizontal velocity, or more often than not, they had rotors, rotating fans or something like that to generate some vertical lift. Then you have another fan that's oriented horizontally to provide you horizontal movement and control. And I always found that kind of interesting. And some of them really looked like flying saucers. And in fact, they were. And they weren't necessarily reduced to practice, but they were set forth in sufficient detail that a person could build it on their own if they wished to. The drawings are very specific on some of these things, and the detailed description of the invention certainly is detailed enough for you to be able to make one of these things, and presumably it would work the way the inventor said. With patents, all patents are public documents. When the application comes into the Patent Office, and unless it's had a pre-grant publication, and I won't go into all this stuff, but if you don't have a pre-grant publication on your application, it's held in confidence by the Patent Office. We're not supposed to go out and start talking to people about the latest application I worked on, to just anyone on the street. But once it comes out as a patent, assuming it's allowable and it gets a patent number, then it's a public document, and the interactions of the Patent Office with the patent attorney are then all public, and you can request the file and you can look at it and read about it, and you can see what the Patent Office applied as prior art for the invention and how the attorney responded and all that. There's a separate group of applications that come into the Patent Office, very few of them, relatively speaking, and the Patent Office gets hundreds of thousands of applications a year. But there are some that come in that are classified by the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, conceivably NASA maybe, but some of them are classified. And those patents are examined by a much smaller group of people in the Patent Office who have a clearance to be able to look at those applications. If one of these applications is allowed, whatever it might be, a radar device, say, or what have you, and it doesn't come out as a patent until the government or the branch of the armed services declassifies that particular subject matter. So you could have a patent that I work on, say, in 1980 and allow it in 1980, and it doesn't come out until now, 38 years later, because that's how long it's taken before the government finally said this subject matter can be released. Then the patent actually issues, so it would have a 2018 patent issue date. but there's no such thing as a classified patent. There's only classified patent applications. And those could be, presumably, I don't know, but presumably there could be classified patent applications from World War II still in there. And so that's how that works. And there's not a lot of them in the low thousands, I think, of classified applications. But yes, I worked on some of those. But there's, again, all these things have to conform, even the classified ones, to accepted laws of science and accepted engineering principles. And you can't come in saying I have an anti-gravity source as my motive force for my aircraft. The patent office will reject it.
Okay. And that's good information, and thank you. That's really fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, I don't want to get. Yeah, I hope I didn't bore everybody with that. But in a saucer shell, in a really small nutshell, that's how it works.
No, thank you. That's interesting. Yeah, and I know that Lib will be happy that you gave us some information about that. And so, I want to go back to your younger years, and then you getting involved in all of this. Did you ever have a sighting?
I meant to mention that before. Thanks for reminding me of that, Erica. No, I never have. Damn it! I've never seen anything that I really can't explain. But no, I've never had any dramatic sighting or anything like that to spur my interest. I acquired my interest, just like I told you, from extant published materials and news reports of the time.
So do you, because you hear about, and I'm a person that has had many interesting things happen in my life, and you have some people that have a lifetime full of experiences, and some people that never do. So do you think why would that be the case?
Yeah, I don't know why that is the case. Some of it is really being in the right time at the right place, or the wrong time at the wrong place, however you want to look at these. But I do think, and so in that case, yes, you would see something just coincidentally. You walk outside, you see a cigar-shaped object crossing across the sky. That would be great. That's maybe just coincidence. Somebody calls you outside the house to say, look at what's in the sky, and you see it there. It might be just coincidence. Other cases, the sightings do seem to be targeted for an individual. These are strange sightings. They're almost creepy sightings. This is an aspect of ufology that's kind of hard for some maybe people to accept, but and a person who's done a good job on illuminating this portion of ufology is Dr. Michael Swords. He's written a number of articles on sightings that seem to be targeted for a particular individual or group of individuals, because the sighting itself, say, wouldn't look the same if you were just a couple hundred yards to the right or a couple hundred yards to the left. It would be a different sighting entirely. And these would be sightings, for example, where the UFO is seen to, say, make a geometric pattern around the moon, or fly in a particular figure in the sky. And if you just go a little bit, like I say, a number of feet to the one side or the other side, you're going to be, the parallax is going to throw the whole flight of the object off in the way it looks to you, and you're not going to see a circle around the moon or anything like this. So I can only conclude, like Mike, that some of these are targeted for the individuals, though I don't know why.
And that's interesting. And I've been, when you talk about that, I remember reading Dr. Swords, his article on that. And I'm trying to remember the name of his blog.
Yeah, it used to be called The Biggest Study, BIGGEST, I think, or The Big Study. Maybe it didn't have the EST on the end. But he no longer does that, but it's all archived there online. And you can put in just The Big Study or Mike Swords, The Big Study, and you'll find it all there. But it's a fascinating, it's well worth going and looking at what Mike had to write, because not only does he write on UFOs, he's an expert on that, but he knows the larger Fortean field very well. He's a good guide to have to lead you through the intricacies of, say, lake monsters or strange cryptids, this type thing. He's got the Ivan Sanderson files at his house stored there, and he's a bright guy. He has a lot to say on these subjects, and any perusal of his Big Study blog is well worth the time.
And I've always loved looking at his blog, and just because he is such a wealth of knowledge, and it's so diverse.
Absolutely.
I love it. And so there is a meeting in Kalamazoo that takes place, and I would love to be a fly on the wall and be in the presence of greatness. And I know that, Jan Aldrich and some people go, and you are involved too, and you just talk about UFO research. And so what is the typical meeting like when you go?
Well, it's not a complete serious thing. Sometimes we have a little bit of an agenda, but yeah, we meet for 2 or 3 days in Mike's home there in Kalamazoo, and it's a rather small crowd, probably no larger than 20 people I've seen there, maybe even a little bit fewer than that. And we discuss whatever people want to talk about, but some people aren't even part of the discussion. Like Jan Aldrich usually goes and pulls files off a shelf or out of a filing cabinet, and he's scanning them, and he's sitting there sort of by himself going through these, good-naturedly in a way, and you can talk with him. But some people are just doing some research on their own and reading. Others are involved in separate groups talking about whatever they wish to talk about. And sometimes the conversation turns to non-UFO stuff. It's just a good time and sort of a relaxing time. It's not at all stressful. And one comes out of it having a chance to talk to Eddie Bullard or Dave Marler or whoever it might be that's there, and Phyllis Budinger, for example. And you can just have just a casual conversation and say, what are you working on now? And it's just a pleasant weekend of camaraderie among people who know a lot about the UFO subject.
And that is so wonderful because, as you know, it's very difficult to find people that have a great knowledge or have things that you feel you can learn from. Like I am amazed and blessed every day that I get to talk to some of these people who I consider my mentors. And when you're there and you're looking at everyone, I mean, do you all of you ever strategize on how to carry research forward or to instill a sense of excitement in the younger generation?
Boy, that's a good question. I would have to say that with respect to the latter point, no, I don't think we have sat around and said, how do we can get the young people involved? Maybe we should be doing that, but that's almost too serious. That sounds like kind of work there, Erica. I put some stress on things.
All right. I mean, it's interesting.
But there aren't too many younger people there. Yeah, go ahead.
But I mean, when you look at you go to a MUFON symposium or any symposium, and you look around and you see the average age is 60 plus.
Yeah, I know.
And the average, gender is male, and there's so many things. For me, I just think, how in the world are we going to create excitement and get people involved and steer people away from the secret space program and some of these YouTubers that might not have a clue, just want to make money marketing?
Well, yeah, you're onto something there. With respect to, although we may not discuss that topic at Mike's meetings, how to get younger people involved and how to get maybe more women involved in ufology is something that comes up during board meetings at MUFON. And we don't have any great answers, don't get me wrong, but certainly using some of the social media platforms is part of it. But I don't think anybody's found a real cut and dried answer that we've missed all these years. Why was it that young people were interested in UFOs and came flocking to the UFO field in the 1960s and the 1950s, and they're not now? Why is that? Are the electronic devices more intriguing and more addictive to them than studying these reports of things seen in the sky? Do the kids are they even bored with these sightings and they'd rather see more adventurous stuff online or on their handheld devices that makes them not want to go to UFO meetings or even read about it? I honestly don't know, Erica.
I know, it's such an interesting thing. I mean, but you look at, someone like Tom DeLonge, and he has the ear of a younger generation. And so for that, and for him being, going out there and stopping his musical career to do that and get younger people involved, I mean, I have to give him props for that.
Oh, certainly. And And along those same lines, Alien Con, which I guess was just held in Baltimore last weekend, they draw thousands of people. I think they draw 3,000 people. And you know that the average age there is going to probably be in the 20s or something like that. What's drawing these people out to Alien Con? Is true scientific study or looking into cases, again, not as fun as just looking at computer-generated things or ideas that are set forth in movies or TV programs. It's a head-scratcher, I will be honest with you.
Yeah, it is for me as well. And I will say the one thing that gave me a real sense of hope was not being here, but being over in Norway and watching. I was there during science camp, and that's when they took, they spend 2 weeks and they take the students from the Østfold College, from the engineering department out there. And so they are up climbing mountains with computers and equipment, and they're witnessing things firsthand, and they're excited, and so that was really, really cool to see younger people with a lot of smarts in them and getting out there and being excited by this and understanding how to utilize and the importance of science with regard to the study of this.
Well, that would be wonderful. I wish we had a permanent instrumentation site like Hessdalen, because I think, you could replicate that same process here in the States and get people to go out there to that in the summer or whenever you wanted to do it. And I think that the problem we have of attracting people to UFO research is, in a sense, shared by the larger space community. I'm not sure that they're getting a whole hell of a lot of young people coming out that are just interested in space travel or want to know what's the latest. When are we going to send people up to the moon or to Mars using conventional rocket technology? I have read reports where engineers are worried about the fact that the imagination of the younger people that pushes them into engineering and space research related fields is lacking there for some reason. Again, they may be bored with things as quote, simple, unquote, or mundane, unquote, as going to the moon, because on the CGs and in the movies and whatnot, we've gone to the stars. Why is a kid going to be interested in a crazy domed enclosure on the moon? I know. I think that's fascinating. I do too. And maybe it's just the way that, all of us in this subject have presented it. And when I was with MUFON, I mean, that's something that I would talk to Jan or Roger Marsh about, and saying, God, we've got to make this. The real scientific research can be glamorous. It's just a matter of the way you present it, and it can be enticing, and it can get people involved. But we have to stop approaching it like a 75-year-old, man. Not that that's a bad thing, but you know what I'm saying. It's not. It's not exciting for a younger person. Yeah. MUFON has a tap dance they have to keep up, because if they go entirely to the young people, then they're going to lose their long-established journal subscribers and people. UFO research investigators are not necessarily going to come in, and if they completely do an about-face and ignore the young people, then pretty soon, you're not going to have any people, because the older people are no longer there. We're going to die off. And so they have this kind of a two-step they have to do. How do we attract young people while keeping our base intact? And that has not proven to be an easy problem to solve.
Yeah, no, that is a difficult thing, and I can understand that. And I don't know. I guess for me, because I just have these ideas. I think that it can be done. But then again, I'm a glass half full kind of girl, so I think that this can be exciting, and you can hang out with the people, the students in Norway, and climb mountains and see things up close and personal. I mean, there's so many fun things. Or you can, spend a day looking through UFO archives, with Barry Greenwood, or all these things. I mean, there's some really cool ways to approach it, but
it's not a bad idea. Well, I would, you're right. And I would say to anybody listening here, by all means, if you have some good ideas, or if you have criticisms of where MUFON is going wrong, what are we doing wrong, or what are we doing right, or what are we not doing enough of, please contact me or contact Jan Harzan or leave a message on the MUFON website. It'll get to the right people. And believe me, we had a telephone conversation the other day where exactly this topic came up about how are we going to get more young people in. So yeah, it is something that's on pretty close to the front burner at MUFON. And yeah, even you, Eric, I would say, yes, send your ideas to Roger or something like that, or to me on my email address, and I'll see that they get to Jan and the right people on the board so we can talk about them.
I think that's great. I would definitely send, just have conversations with you, because as critical as I have been about MUFON, because I see areas for MUFON to change. I at the end of the day absolutely support the individual peoples involved and the state chapters and all of the good hard work and passion that people have for this subject. And I want to see people succeed that have the right motives for this.
Well, that's what we certainly we share those views. And MUFON, like any organization, has things it does well and things it doesn't do well, and it makes mistakes just like every other organization in the world, nonprofit or profit-driven. And I will say that, man, the field investigators whose reports I read and the work I see that's being done on the journal each month, it's all, a lot of this is done by volunteers. The field investigations are, for the most part. The journal staff is paid a little bit, but nonetheless, an awful lot of work is going in, very devoted work to trying to figure out and solve cases or explain them as one object or another, explain them as an unknown if you have to. Every month, I'm kind of in awe when I look at some of those case files, what people are doing, the work they're putting in on those, in investigating these sightings.
And isn't that amazing? Like, even I've been asked to speak at different MUFON chapters, and when I get there to those meetings, I just look at how slick everything is run and how the people that are in charge of this, I mean, yeah, they're all volunteers. They spend a lot of time and sacrifice money and do all of these things, and that to me is commendable, because they are giving solace to people that have had traumatic experiences and much, much more. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm Erica Lukes. We are going to take a break, and we will be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows, visit her website at UFOclassified.com. UFO Classified. UFO Classified. This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51. Wait, that doesn't exist. This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
back to the second half of UFO Classified. I'm Erica Lukes. Always happy to be here, and I want to give a big shout out, of course, to Tina Marie, who is my producer and station owner, and then also Northern UFOs, who helps to get my show out on YouTube. I am proud to be here and to be able to have the opportunity to talk with some of the amazing people that I've talked to, and I always have to go back to a very candid conversation that I had with Dr. Richard Haynes from NARCAP. He was on my show a couple years ago, and he told me, he said, Erica, I was taught at a young age by one of my professors that in order to make change, that you stand on the shoulders of the people coming, the people that have come before you, and you, Erica, are here to stand on mine. And I loved that, and it was so profound, and I was so honored for him to say that. And I truly feel that people like, I say Barry Greenwood a lot because he's my mentor, Jan, Fran, Rob, who is my guest this evening. I mean, there's so much, Michael Swords, so much information there, and so many things that we can learn from history, from talking to people who have done the hard work, and we can stand on their shoulders and truly make a difference, and then excite a younger generation. I know I might be dreaming, but dang it, that's the way I roll. So I am on that little tangent. I am here with Rob Swiatek, who graduated from Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania in physics and earth science, and also spent his career at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in Virginia. He is an exceptional researcher and a lot of fun to talk to and learn from. So Rob, welcome back. I mean, there's so many places I want to go with you because you have so many cases and then experiences with people, and oh my goodness.
Well, it's again, thank you for letting me be on your show tonight, Erica, and it's good to be on for the second hour here. I'm looking forward to it.
I know we were. Tina was right. I was getting a little spicy on break. Just because I think that there's so many cool ways that we can approach things and make a change. And I truly, feel, and I'm sure that since you're on the MUFON board of directors, that's got to be a tough job to watch, people come and go, to watch younger people not feel like they're necessarily wanting to engage in this. And so what are your thoughts? What is the MUFON what do all of you say on the board of directors?
Well, a lot of the things we say are kind of boring, to be honest with you, because it's when we have our meetings. I'm being frank with you, Erica. They're business meetings, so yes, we have to go over budget items and can we afford to give so and so a little bit of a raise, or do we want to, move their headquarters or whatever it might be. There's in that respect, we're no different than any nonprofit corporation business board. We have to keep the organization running and make decisions sometimes like that. But yes, we usually have an agenda, and we don't actually talk about cases too much because we're actually not there to do that. It's just to run the organization. So yes, we always get into how can we attract more people, or what can we do to make the annual MUFON symposium more interesting and more attractive to people, to get 5,000 people instead of 700 people or whatever it might be. And so yeah, you would be surprised that things like that just. The whole day goes by and we just are ticking off these agenda items, and they're it's kind of a stressful meeting, I sometimes find, and we do have some disagreements sometimes, though we're all friends, and but yeah, there are sticking points, and we're forced to make sometimes a decision we'd rather not make or go another way, but yeah, that's how the meetings are. I know it's a kind of a nebulous overview I've given of them, but that's.
Well, I mean, I think people, there is so much mystery about the inner workings of MUFON, specifically, when you have things like Bigelow purchasing the database or different things. I mean, sometimes I feel if there was a good chance to clear things up and there might not be so much negativity towards MUFON or so much conspiracy theory.
Right, and of course that time period when Robert Bigelow was involved with MUFON, 2009, that would have been. board meetings were somewhat different then, at least in respect to the Bigelow involvement and how to handle that. And we don't have anything sort of equivalent to that going on now. And a lot of the decisions are handled by the executive director, Jan Harzan. He can't turn around every day and can consult the board members, 8 or 9 board members, however many there are, on every move he makes. So he's vested with a lot of freedom to make decisions with a TV company maybe for a show, and in consultation with Roger and then the people in the public in the media affairs part of MUFON. And so a lot of this is carried out by Jan as part of his day-to-day activities. But if we get back with another Bigelow or the equivalent thereof organization, then the meetings would take a completely different cast. Let me just put it that way.
And so what, again, the time when Bigelow was involved in this, I mean, there was a lot of speculation. I know Elaine Douglas, who was, I took over for her as state director when I was in MUFON, but she had a lot of concerns about that union and what she had, she was right on about her fears that there was government involvement in this, but nobody thought at the time that was really the case.
That was really the case. We didn't even know it then on the board, to be honest with you. And so there, as I think I mentioned to you in an email, I would have to have to say that Eric Davis wasn't quite right about that. Let me just step back a little bit and try to recapitulate some recent UFO history, especially that with Bigelow. The UFO field involvement with Bigelow actually started probably 1994 time period, where he was involved with in some early Roswell work, I think, with Stan Friedman, and Stan writes about this in his book. But sometime around late 94, 1995, Robert Bigelow approached the 3 extant UFO groups at that time, the Fund for UFO Research, on whose board I was and still am, I guess, the Center for UFO Studies and MUFON. And he basically called us to a meeting, and it was held in St. Louis, as I recall. And coincidentally, that first meeting turned out to be on the very day that O.J. Simpson made his celebrated white Bronco drive. That sticks in my mind.
That'll live in memory. Yeah, the memory books, definitely.
Wow. That even came up during the meeting. But the long and the short of it is that Robert Bigelow, at his behest, he said, "I'm willing to give you guys some money, but you have to come together as an organization and not remain 3 separate organizations." We were all friends, the people of CUFOS and MUFON and the Fund. Richard Hall was with the Fund, and Don Berliner and Mike Storrs and Mark Rodiger with the Center, and Walt Andrus and John Schuessler with MUFON, for example. Tom Dooley was in there. But he said, "I'll give you some money and let's come together. Can you form an organization?" Out of that, the UFO Research Coalition emerged. It's an actual 501c3 nonprofit organization in Virginia. In fact, I just mailed out the annual report today. So that organization was created at Robert Bigelow's request. And the next year, 1995, through, I guess, 1994 to 1995, we did indeed receive a budget from Robert Bigelow. And I'm thinking now, and I might have the numbers a little bit wrong, but I think we got something like $100,000 for that first year to spend on various projects. And indeed, we asked people to submit their projects to us, and they did. We got quite a few projects. I think it was 80 something. Not all of them were funded, but a number of them were. And Jan Aldrich's 1947 UFO study was one of the things that resulted from that, as did an early version of Richard Hall's UFO Evidence 2. And a whole bunch of other things. We funded Bud Hopkins and a bunch of other things. Unfortunately, it didn't make much of an influence on the UFO field because it only lasted for literally about 1 year. And Robert Bigelow changed his mind how he wanted to be involved with this organization. It didn't have any special name, but he thought he should have a role in saying how the money was going to be spent. And originally we had agreed that it would be up to the UFO experts to determine how the money would be spent. And without getting into it any more deeply, it just didn't work out then, and because we couldn't come to then a good agreement as to what's the proper balance between the donor and the organization that's spending the money, how that money should be spent. I thought we did a pretty good job of not spending it frivolously and spending it only on pretty good projects. But anyhow, the money was all spent, and the project did not have a contract at the end of that second year, and future contracts were going to be in the millions of dollars. So there was a lot at stake here. And that ended around, like I say, beginning of 1996. So another 8 years went by when Robert Bigelow wasn't involved with organized UFO groups, with the organized UFO groups. And at the beginning of 2009, he then made contact with the director of MUFON at that time. I think it was James Carrion. And he entered into an agreement with MUFON that for a set amount of money each month, Robert Bigelow would be entitled to the access to the CMS system, the case management system, at that time sort of in its infancy. But he could look at those cases, and he could send teams of investigators out if he wanted to investigate any one or more particular cases. And we were supposed to spend the money that we got from that project to have field investigative work done, which we did. And that too didn't last for reasons I won't get into here, because it'd be kind of boring and it would be a little too just involved. But it didn't last. We were not able, in short, to come up to speed the way Bob Bigelow wanted us to in spending that money. So if we got $20,000 every month, we couldn't always spend the $20,000 that month. Some of it would have to be pushed over to the next month. And that was not acceptable to the Bigelow organization. It was all supposed to be spent. Well, it took a long time. It takes more than a month to build up a competent group of investigators that you're going to pay and put out into the field and give them credit cards and get accommodations for them if a good case comes up. But anyhow, a whole lot of headaches. At the time, we on the board had heard rumors, I don't know where they came from, that Bob Bigelow wasn't using his own money to fund this, to pay MUFON. It was coming from a government source. All of us said, wow, maybe it's the Air Force, maybe it's the CIA. We had no idea. Did anybody on the board have an idea? Maybe one or two people did. I sure didn't. And it was just speculation. But then that project ended at the beginning of 2010 in a whole lot of discord, and it was a bad time for MUFON, and the organization barely survived that whole experience. But we did. And Bob Bigelow then went on to do what Bob did, and then he formed Bigelow Aerospace right around that same time. And then in retrospect, it turns out that yes, that was some of the money that Bob was being paid by the government as part of the contract he had with the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Project, or it was called AAWSAP back then, I think. But that's where some of that money came from. He was paid an initial $10 million in 2008, and eventually he got around $22 million, or maybe a little bit less. But yeah, that's where it was coming from. So,
and thank you very much for clarifying that. I mean, there are lots of, like I said, lots of rumors about this, and I want to just mention this because I had heard your director of investigations, Chase Kletzky, mention on a radio show that at no point in time did Bigelow have access to the CMS, that basically what he bought and paid a lot of money for was simply what the public had access to, which to me seems odd that somebody would agree to pay almost $1 million to access information that they could find available online.
Yeah, we never got $1 million. Again, I don't think I'm breaking any confidences here when I say what I'm going to say, and I certainly apologize if I am, but I don't believe that to be the case. But the money, while big by UFO research group standards, was pretty small in overall dollars, I guess. I think MUFON started off getting $25,000 a month to do the things we needed to do in terms of case investigation and purchasing instruments and stuff like that, and for paying people to do a certain amount of work and monitoring the telephone almost 24 hours a day. I don't think it was quite 24 hours, and that was ratcheted down over time to 20 grand, and I forget what it was at the end of the year. 11 months later, after it started around March or so maybe, and it ended in December. And then I think we were getting a much smaller amount of money. But yeah, that's how that was. And as far as I recall, Bob had there were certain guidelines he had to operate on with respect to the CMS system. But as I recall, he had access to the CMS systems, so he could determine where a case occurred, or if he didn't know who the witness was or how to contact the witness, he could make a call to the director of investigations or the MUFON executive director to find that information out. So in theory, he could have his research teams on the ground working with the witnesses, and MUFON could too. They could be working the same case. And the head of this, they called it the SIP at that time, Star Team Investigation Project or something. I can't remember what it exactly stood for, was a friend of mine named Richard Lang. And Richard told me that, I think he told me that on maybe one or two occasions, MUFON investigators encountered people from Robert Bigelow's investigation team. But I don't know how many cases Bigelow ever investigated that he got from CMS. If he acquired any samples of material, be it dead plants or burned plants or metallic samples or alloys or whatever it might be, the contract said he had to return those after the research was done.
Oh, that's interesting. And honestly, thank you, because this is, as far as I know, this is the most information and the most clarity that we've had about that. And I appreciate that a lot. And I'm sure my listeners do too. And it helps kind of alleviate any of these conspiracies or things that take place with regard to this.
There was no dark side to it, or any clandestine government involvement on behalf of MUFON with any government entities whatsoever. The only people who actually spoke with the Robert Bigelow team would have been the executive director at that time and the director of investigations maybe, and certainly Richard Lang. They interfaced with the people that Bigelow had his own slate of investigators, some of whose names are known now. But yeah, the board members, the individual board members didn't, and we would just get reports from James Carrion and Richard Lang, and they were pretty good about giving reports. But there was no conspiracy really involved in that I could ever discern. And I haven't looked at the contract for a while, so I'm pretty sure what I said is correct on all this. And it was pretty straightforward on how it operated, or in some cases didn't operate.
It was so. I would bet when the news came out. I mean, we had in 2017 the New York Times article about the $22 million allocated for spending, and I mean, was that the first time that some of you realized that the government was involved with Bigelow and MUFON at that point?
Well, it was for me, Erica.
Wow.
Yeah, I had not heard. I knew Bigelow was involved with the Skinwalker Ranch, certainly, but I had not heard of any government involvement, other than the rumors I heard while I was on the board back in 2009 that some of the money was coming from a government source. We sort of just assumed that maybe Bigelow was working with the government, but no, that caught me by as much surprise as maybe it caught you.
That was interesting. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's so much that goes on that has been fascinating, especially as of late. And so, I want to go back to the early days when MUFON wanted to kind of combine these research organizations, which is a noble. I mean, that seems like a great effort. It seems like something that we should be doing to begin with, and we definitely know that Bigelow has spent more on researching this topic than any living human being, at least according to George Knapp and the reporter in 60 Minutes. And so what do you think his motivations are? I mean, I know that's a loaded question, but.
Well, yeah, it's not actually that loaded. If you hear a big explosion, you'll know I was wrong. But nonetheless, Robert Bigelow has been very straightforward. At least he was to the Research Coalition, and I know we're running out of time here for this segment, but in a letter I have from Robert Bigelow, he sets forth that he had interest in UFOs as a very young boy. I think his grandparents had a sighting. I think he's even talked about this publicly, but his grandparents had some kind of a sighting, and so he was hooked at an early age by the UFO phenomenon and by the paranormal in general. So his motives, I'd have to be honest, in my way of thinking, are like yours and mine are. He wants to get to the bottom of this thing any way he can. And he loves space travel, and he liked to think and read about it as a boy. And I think he's even quoted as saying, he even wrote in this letter that I have somewhere that was sent to a bunch of us, that he hoped someday to make a vast fortune and to be able to plow some of that back into the field of science, either in space travel or maybe even Fortean topics like UFOs. But his motives are they don't differ from ours, as far as I know.
And that's interesting, because he does have a genuine interest, and I have to say that his interview on 60 Minutes blew my mind. And I think that was probably the most important interview with regard to this subject that we have ever seen. And people don't pay attention to that or look back on what he did and what he really put out there on a national, on the national and international stage. But that was huge.
Yeah,
so.
and I don't think he has any material. I mean, I honestly don't think that the government has vouchsafed him with material from the Roswell crash. He doesn't have a big disc, I don't believe, sitting somewhere in a hangar or bodies or stuff like that. If he has any material, these so-called metamaterials we all hear about, I believe it has come from just case investigations or things that people have sent to him purporting to be from UFO crashes or things have fallen off the thing. Maybe even some of it came from MUFON stuff early on there. But yeah, he's able to apply the research to those materials, and we could not do that. He has the money and he had the staff. He had like a bunch of scientists working for him, so he should have been capable of looking into this stuff far more than we could have.
Right, absolutely. And thank you so much again for your candor and talking about this. I think this is very important. I am Erica Lukes. We are going to get ready for our last break. I'm here with P Swiatek, and what a great conversation. I knew it would be. Stick around, get into chat, ask questions, and we will be right back.
By.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
The all-new KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Great. Make a note of it. It's great.
If ever a breed was affectionate to a fault, it's the Golden Retriever. They're people dogs, pure and simple. And the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada needs your help. If you would like to volunteer, foster, adopt, or donate, go to the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada's website at grrsn.org. That's grrsn.org. Or call 598-GOLD. That's 598-GOLD.
There is a world outside that which we live in, a realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room.
The 1 hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole. The Paradigm Matrix explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
It is always with great sadness that I welcome you back to the fourth and final segment of UFO Classified. I am Erica Lukes, happy to be here on a Friday night with all of my friends in chat and all of the people listening worldwide. This show is incredible and it's spreading, and I really look forward to now with the two new TV shows that I will be in premiering in January. The fact that the show will just continue to grow and we're getting good information out there. My guest this evening, P Swiatek, has been very forthright. He's on the MUFON board of directors about some things that took place with Robert Bigelow that we've been learning more and more about since the New York Times article on December 17th. And that was a big one in 2017. And I appreciate that, Rob. I think this is really, really good. Thank you. So I want to get into a couple of the cases that you have worked on because you sent me two of them and they are really curious, incredible, and I think that there is something to be said for commonalities in other cases around the world. So tell us about your two cases.
Okay, well, let's see here. You caught me a little surprised on that first case. So let me give a couple statistics first, Erica, and I'll page through here. I want to get the dates right on this thing here. These are cases, summaries I prepared for a little conference I gave last month in October called Mysteries of Space and Sky in Maryland. It's an annual thing, so don't hesitate to come out to this thing, folks. Here's some stats just to show you the kind of numbers we're dealing with here in UFO reports. Just on behalf of MUFON, I'll talk a little bit on NUFORC real briefly here as well. But I did the data for January through September of 2018. And in that time period, those 9 months, the MUFON CMS system took a total of 4,087 cases in. That number has changed since that time, since people log in, say, in November for a case that happened in July. But it's still going to be around the same number, maybe 4,100. And that includes both the U.S. and international. And so essentially 4,000 cases MUFON got for those 9 months. NUFORC got 2,400, 2,475 to be honest. And the U.S. total was 2,846. the first 9 months of this year. And now that's almost 3,000 cases. In 22 years of operation, Project Blue Book got 12,000. So here we're almost getting 1/4, 25% of the amount that Blue Book got over 22 years. So that's kind of astounding. And through September, there were 646 unknown cases out of those 2846 in the U.S. So about 22% of all the cases turned out to be unknowns. I don't know what those unknowns are, but that's what the conclusion that the case investigators, the field investigators, came up with. How do these things fall out by states? That go really fast through just a couple of them here. California almost always leads the parade in cases. They had 51 cases for those 9 months that were unknowns, based on about 300 cases. Then Washington State was second, Pennsylvania was third, Missouri came up fourth with 72 reports and 38 unknowns, and Florida was fifth, I guess, with 15 cases and 36 unknowns. So those folks out there, guys in the field investigators, they're doing a hell of a lot of work. Let me quickly give you how do these things stack up by international countries here, because MUFON has a certain amount of investigators in other countries, and we just get cases from other countries as well. And anybody around the world can fill out a MUFON form and CMS form and talk about their sighting. The United Kingdom here leads in this, as it does almost every year. We got 312 reports for the 9 months ending in September 2018, and 51 unknown. United Kingdom, as your listeners, I'm sure, very up to date on the UFO stuff. For decades and decades, they've had a lot of private interest in UFOs, and a lot of UFO groups there, and through the years, a lot of publications and very good researchers. Very active country for UFOs. Canada was second, 321 reports, but 35 unknowns. I have these ranked in terms of unknowns. Then we dropped down to Australia, 54 cases in total, 8 unknowns. We don't have too many MUFON investigators there per se. And then, here's where it gets kind of funny. We have India, one of the most populous countries in the world. Well, MUFON got 31 case reports in the first of this year from India. 7 of them were unknown. So you know damn well that there's a heck of a lot of cases going on in India that we never hear of. China, with all its people, we got 2 reports in the first 9 months, one of which turned out to be an unknown. In terms of the chance, it's a 50% chance of seeing a UFO in China there, so you might want to go to China. That seems to be the highest percentage there for seeing a UFO. And here's the really weird thing. We got more reports from Antarctica than we got from China. MUFON got 3 reports from Antarctica, one of which was an unknown. So 6 reports from the Russian Federation. So you can see the coverage of UFO activity around the world is really poor. It would be wonderful to know what's going on in, say, India and the vast territory of China and the Russian Federation. Yeah, a handful of cases. Rhode Island almost gets more cases than the Russian Federation every year.
Do you blame that? Because obviously I think people are, especially with the younger generation that we've been talking about, people are taking to Facebook or Instagram or some of these other social media outlets to talk about sightings reports, and they're not going to do the work and maybe dig a little extra to find out about where they can report things. And I think sometimes when they get to, with the short attention spans, they get to the MUFON, intake form, and they're just like, I'm done.
Oh, that's part of it. And the language barrier is a huge problem. I mean, a person in the Russian Federation who only speaks, the local dialect there, Russian, for example, or whatever it might be, they're not going to be able to understand the sighting forms and be able to fill them out any more than I could fill out a French UFO, sighting report form. Same thing with China. We don't have these things translated into all the various languages of the countries that they could be accessed by. Much work remains to be done there. It's self-obvious, So yeah, it's kind of sad, and there aren't too many UFO researchers that we even know of in India or China. We don't even have friends there. unfortunately.
Right.
You know, one person maybe, you know, that type thing.
So do you think, what do you think is more important to do? Do you think it's taking the data that we have and identifying areas where people should be out doing field research, or do you think it is looking for the one great case that will blow the lid off of everything? Because I definitely feel sometimes we're waiting for that one case, and if the Phoenix Lights didn't do it, or the 1952 Washington D.C. sightings, I mean, some of these things, if those didn't blow the lid off of it, then that's never going to happen. And I think sometimes we spend so much time spinning our wheels on a single case that we're missing the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's a profound issue, and it's really difficult to say. Yeah, one case could do it, but it hasn't happened in all these years. Like you point out, extant cases haven't done anything to sway the scientific community. I don't want to think about that too much because that gets me very depressed. I'm still for looking at each case and trying to identify the best ones we can and throwing them up there on a pedestal if we can for the scientific community to look at. I'm still hopeful, man. I don't know how many more years I have left, but it's probably not going to happen. But I'm still hopeful that maybe we'll hit a vein in the scientific community. And some of this would be money, because scientists need to be paid money to do work. And maybe we could get them to look into great sample evidence or trace material if we could pay them the money that they need to do the research and to account for their salaries and whatnot. But I'm still hopeful that's going to happen. And that's why I think reports have to be looked at. And we go through you could say it's a dog and pony show, but yet it isn't. We have to go through these cases and figure out what are the good ones and what aren't, and then show the good ones to the world. That's all MUFON can do with the current money it has and the budget it has. You know, I found that case you were talking about, Erica. If you wanted me to talk a little bit just about this case here, I think this is the one I showed you. This was a case that happened over Attica, Attica, Indiana, in March of this year, around 10 o'clock at the night. This fellow was outside of his friend's house. This fellow was, I think, maybe was going to do some construction on his friend's home, and he was out late in the night, sort of just assessing the job that he had to do in the morning. He was trying to assess how much vinyl siding or something he need for the house. So he was counting panels or something like that. So he was outside his friend's house, looking up into the sky because he was looking up the side of the house. And lo and behold, he sees these four lights in a V shape, moving across his house, almost literally right overhead. And okay, the four lights weren't in a symmetrical V, but there were, if you want to sort of picture this in your mind, three lights along one side and one light along the other, or a center light and two lights along one side and one light along the other. But it was a lopsided V. The two of the lights on the longer leg, the last two lights on the longer leg, were curiously moving around one another. They were just bouncing around one another. That's how he described it. They danced about each other, I think is the word he used. Meantime, the whole kit and caboodle of these four lights just curved around and eventually moved out of sight. They made a nice curve and just vanished from sight. Okay, now, why do I think this case is really intriguing? There's been a million cases of triangles and V-shaped things seen in the sky. They're all kind of interesting, but how does this one stand out? Well, I just happened to be looking through the UFO evidence that was compiled and written by Richard Hall in 1964, I think it was, in this volume 1. And lo and behold, if I didn't come across a case that happened over Boulder City, Nevada in mid-August of 1956, where this man and his wife were sitting on the back step of their house. And like I say, around 10 in the night, just enjoying the summer weather. And suddenly a group of objects comes right over their house. 5 slightly glowing objects is the way he described it. They flew directly over the house from the north to the south. And curiously, the man described it as a lopsided V. 3 of the objects formed one of the leg, and 2 of the objects formed the other. And there weren't any lights that danced about one another, like the other fellow in Indiana described. But this, again, was a lopsided V, lights going over the house. And they eventually just moved out of shape, the sighting angle became great and they vanished in the distance. But to me, and again, I might be a simple man here in this, but this simple sighting, a lopsided V thing, it's just such an unusual shape to see these lights. And here we have a sighting almost 60, a little more than 62 years later, replicates what these people saw back in 1956. The exact same thing. And I can't think of a natural phenomenon that behaves that way. In each case, the investigators came up with an unknown for it. So there you have it. And I think that's almost all it takes to convince a person that there's something to the UFO field than to just take a case like this or a couple other cases I have where very unusual formations of objects or shapes of objects were seen in the early 50s and then in 2018 or 2017. Things that were so obscure in the UFO literature that I cannot for the life of me think that, oh, the person looked back at the UFO evidence and decided to emulate a case that was reported 60-some years ago. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. So this kind of stuff I love when I find these kind of correlations in the sighting files.
And I loved, seeing these cases and then looking at something that I think is very similar to that. And that's the great beauty of this. I mean, it's all of these cases, they truly don't change over the decades, over the centuries. And so it's just a matter of talking to different researchers and then putting your mind together. And I want to ask you while I'm thinking about this, I mean, because sometimes we've got this nuts and bolts aspect of ufology. And then a lot of times when you've got cases with real high strangeness, we tend to, or researchers tend to omit key parts of the data, so they can just focus on, the quote unquote UFO sighting. But how do you feel about that? And do you think that we should be looking at paranormal aspects and different aspects to a UFO sighting?
Well, absolutely I do. Of course I do. If there's any manifestations that accompany a UFO sighting, just have to be reported and dealt with. I mean, you may not like that there's paranormal aspects with it, or you might not like how the UFO behaved, or what happened in the aftermath of the UFO, but that's part of the sighting too. And absolutely those things need to be noted in the case file and bandied about and talked about by researchers and scientists to try to come up with what's going on. Because like we were talking about earlier, I feel, and again, this is my opinion, my speculation, my hypothesis, that I don't think we're dealing with just, quote, simple, unquote, visitors from outer space that are coming from point A in some star system 20 light years away to point B, the Earth. There's something more going on here. They're either going through another dimension or they're living in another dimension. And I understand completely for those debunkers that are saying I'm explaining one mystery with another. I agree, I am. I don't like doing that. But the nature of some of these sightings, as you've correctly characterized, Erica, is such that you have to deal with outre explanations to account for some of this behavior. You have objects dissolving in front of your eyes that seem to be a solid object, or a solid object changes from a discoidal shape to a boomerang shape, or whatever it might be. That makes no sense. But that's ufology, and that's how the things behave, and we have to take it as they come. So, yeah,
that's wonderful. That is, and thank you. That's incredible, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I have to ask you something just that has been a concern to me, is to see some factions or belief systems that are prevalent in quote unquote ufology, and there is a big push to say that everything is demonic or evil, or this is the end of times, or some of these things that are, I think, detrimental to a good study of the subject. And so do you feel, and I know that, like with maybe John Ventry and some of he's a very demonic, this type of thing. I mean, do you feel that lens, do you feel that is a hindrance in what true scientists are trying to do when we put labels like that on it?
Yes, I would have to say. I would have to say that does hinder the scientific study of UFOs, as I mentioned earlier, I think that maybe there is a demonic explanation to UFOs. And if it's that is to say, there's a supernatural explanation to it, then, Erica, we need to pick up our marbles and go home, because if it's supernatural, then all the laws of science are thrown out. We can't. Supernatural things can do whatever they want to do in a way. It then becomes a religious matter, and we're not going to make any headway. I don't accept the demon explanation or a religious interpretation of UFOs, even though I am a religious man, and I am a Christian, but I do not accept that. And I proceed in my investigations and my research of UFOs as though the things were operating according to some kind of scientific laws and cause and effect. We may not know those laws now, but nonetheless, I have to believe that there's a pattern, a system, and a logic behind all this, even though I might go to my grave, indeed probably will go to my grave, never knowing really what's going on with these things. But that's how I proceed. And yeah, that's how it is.
I like that. No, but you know what though? I like that. And I think that's important, because when I look at, you just YouTube ufology or blah, 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 you look at some of the people that are on the speaking circuit, and all of it is the end of days and, political agendas or, A, B, C, and D that have nothing to do with this. And it taints what we're doing. And we have to, I really feel that I try to look at who I associate with, and I'm not going to be promoting people who maybe are delusional. And I feel that you're the same way too, and that's what's needed. And I respect that about you, and I really, truly respect also just the fact that you want to be, hey, here it is. This is the way it rolls, and let's move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I guess it comes down to some of these opinions that people have on what's going on with UFOs or theories. They're unfalsifiable, and that's the way it is with the demonic explanation or some of these others. There's nothing you can say that's going to disprove their theory, because, well, in their theory, it can do whatever it wants to do. You can't come up with any situation that says, well, if it doesn't do this, or if it doesn't make such and such a move, that would prove it's not demonic. Well, it can make that move. You can never pin them down then, and you can never discredit their theory, because everything falls, no matter what happens in the phenomenon, it falls into their theory. So at that point, it's best to just throw up your hands and walk away.
Well, it's all such an interesting process. And so you have, and we didn't even touch on this, but just a teeny bit, you have some great research that you've been collecting over the years, and I am getting more and more research. How are we going to pull that, and what are we going to do to make sure that this work survives for a younger generation?
Boy, the archival problem, and I see we have about 4 minutes left here. The archival problem is a big problem in ufology, what to do with all this material we have. And again, I solicit any opinions from people. But at the moment, we have several people donating stuff to various universities. Larry Bryant, one longtime researcher in the UFO field, has already donated a lot of his material to a university. And I think Bill Jones of Ohio has given his to Ohio State or something like that. I could be wrong there on the exact university. But that's one route some people are going to preserve their information. That will keep it there. What's going to happen to the Kufos files, which are large, I don't know. But we are working on trying to get a temporary storage place, maybe where some of these files can be stored in the God-forsaken event that some of the principals here die and leave their stuff behind. We'll have some place to park the material in for a little while. But for the long-term view and the long-term future here of some of this stuff, I honestly don't know, Erica, where it's going to go. I can't tell you it's going to go to such and such a place in such and such a city. It's just it hasn't been worked out yet.
I really feel that it would be great to have a conversation with everyone and try to figure out strategies. Donating to universities, although it preserves the work, it makes it incredibly difficult for some of us to research this because we have to spend our own money, take time off of work, go into a university. I mean, obviously traveling, and then also you've got the copyright issues. You know, I mean, I went up to the University of Utah Special Archives, and they were wonderful. All of Dr. Frank Salisbury's work is there, but I can't use any of that.
Oh man!
Unless I get express permission, and I don't think that's going to happen. So I think it would behoove all of us to try to figure that out, because in America we need to have that work in a place where people can get to it online. And that's what I love about what Barry's done so much of this, putting that out there in Jan, Project 1947, and Fran, NICAP, getting this information up there. You know, that's a great thing.
Yeah, you're touching on something that is important. One of the things we all can do as researchers is, if you've got some good stuff, scan it and put it on a hard drive. And that's what Barry has done, a lot of that, and Jan has done that, and people have done it with many collections of material. The CUFOS website has several runs of old UFO publications. But that's something you can do to preserve your files, is scan them, put them on a hard drive, give them to fellow researchers. And then it doesn't matter if the originals, you'll be sad if the originals are destroyed, but we'll still have copies of that material in electronic form, which will last a lot longer than hopefully the books and then the paper ever will. And MUFON has done that with their files, and I think CUFOS is trying to do that with theirs. So yes, there will be hope in that respect, at least for the long-term future of some of this material.
Well, I hope so. We need to strategize. I mean, because this is it's too important. We're right on the cusp of all of this moving into the abyss, and that can't happen. So Rob Swiatek, thank you so much for being here. What an incredible show. I'm Erica Luke. Stick around for Willie Miranda, who will be up next. And I want to thank you, Mario, for my bats and all of my friends getting in there. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. I won't be back next Friday, but the following Friday with lots of road trip information. So stick around and have a great night on KCOR. Catch you next time I'm here.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of